Course, that sucks. I didn't catch any of that. I didn't catch any of my pre-audio. I was recording, but my mics weren't on. Yeah. So this is just gonna have to be it. Yeah. Dang it. Oh well. I like to get the music cutting off and all of that. Setting the vibe. The people getting quiet. The chatter. Now we're good now. It's already rolling. I'm getting all my impromptu stuff like right now. Just hop in there. Mm-hmm. All of the pillows, all the comfort. Product placement. You good?
Yeah.
Cool. How is everybody? Good. Everybody doing good? Thank you guys for coming.
Whoop, whoop.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you guys here.
Yeah. I got
Look at all these smiling faces.
I got one of my favorite people in the world here. Miss Amber Ellis. How are you?
I am good. I'm good.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
We're in your home.
Yes.
Very
The West Side Oasis.
well curated place. Is this really the West Side?
I thought it was the original West Side.
Charlotte facts. Might have
Yeah.
to. You got two natives on the couch. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying? Yeah.
Queen City blood.
According to rumor, myth, might spontaneously combust. That's one narrative that I've been constantly fighting against and not fighting against. It's something that I make sure that I make clear is that there are more natives here than we account for.
I agree. It's interesting. The natives, I'm not sure what we're doing. It's almost like it might be separate. The
It is.
newcomers are here and
It
then
is.
the natives are
I believe that.
ducked around the corner.
People
somewhere.
are people are oh, I don't run into that many natives. It's because you're at Whole Foods and all of the breweries.
Where we at?
You're not, we just chilling. We at the crib. And then,
We at the
you got all
farmer's
the, people always talk about this 50 out of 50 stuff. It's we at work.
Yeah.
We're the underpinnings of the city. You probably interact with at least 5 natives a day. They're the person that's making your food or servicing your car or
Yeah.
something like that.
Or the homie. Yeah.
Yeah. Or the homie.
Yeah.
That's what I tell them. I say, everybody I know is from Charlotte. You're just new here.
Yeah. Oh, we're special.
We are.
Queen City love.
And not unicorns. I hate that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about just Charlotte. We're here to talk about life, art, design,
Yeah.
maybe, business.
Yes. I got that one.
I know you got that one. Let you introduce yourself.
All right.
You know what I mean?
I am Amber Ellis, born and raised Charlotte, North Carolina. Went to West Charlotte High School. Opened up Juvie Hair Spa, Rejuvenation of Hair and Spirit, in 2007. So it has been, what is that?
12.
12 years. Wow. 12 years. So a cosmetologist. I took up cosmetology at West Charlotte and then went to Howard University. And yes, then came home after my freshman year and launched my business a year later. I think
That's it?
that's the brief journey story.
Got you.
Yeah.
So was cosmetology one of those things that you always did growing up, or was it something that you kind of landed on, or was it just oh, I need to start a business, so I'm going to go
So
with it?
interesting.
Yeah.
So my mother was a cosmetologist for 30 years. And when I tell you I was nowhere near her, hair, not at all, no Barbie dolls, none of that. I was a tomboy. I was with my dad fixing up buildings. But it's interesting because it was familiar territory.
Mm-hmm.
So in West Charlotte High School, cosmetology takes up 2 classes. So, and then you take it every day. So I'm like, let's do that.
Right.
So I just had 2 regular classes and the rest was doing hair. And I'm like, that sounds
like the
like
wave.
a win.
Yeah.
So did that. And when I was at Howard, I studied business. So I went from business accounting to business marketing to interior design. And then I was like, too much. This is a big budget for you don't know what you want to do. But I knew that I wanted to do business. I wanted to create. I already saw.
So those were changes in majors?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
in 1 year.
Got you.
Yeah. So I changed majors 3 times in 1 year. And then that's when I had to sit down and like, what are you really searching for? And then I realized like the entrepreneurial blood, the spirit was in me. And what better time to start when I already have a skill set?
Right.
So that's kind of how the cosmetology came in. My entry point into entrepreneurship was cosmetology because it was my quickest entry point. Because I had already had all my hours in high school.
Got you.
Yeah.
Did you do any like interning at other spots prior to opening your own?
I didn't. I studied the Chick-fil-A model, Trader Joe's model. Chick-fil-A, Trader Joe's. There was one more. I can't recall offhand. And then I went to a salon to shampoo hair for free for 3 months. Just enough time for me to understand the inner workings of the things that my mother's salon didn't have, because we move completely different in the entrepreneurship space. So, yeah, I spied, I shampooed, I looked at organization. I said, do you want me to organize that or reorganize that? And once I got what I needed,
made it
took
happen.
it back and made it happen.
That's how it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Is that like a, I don't know, I can't really, first of all, like to be 19 or 18 or whatever and have that kind of foresight is like unheard of. So like, where do you think that came from? Like that vision of like, okay, this is a waste of time, but not only like waste of time and like, well, let's just say a waste of resources. And like, to like, how are you that self-aware that you were like, okay, it's time to actually make a move, and then like actually navigated the process? Like, where do you think the root of that is?
So I think it's a couple of moving parts there, but the main one is my experience in college with that. It was an urge. It wasn't like, oh, I'm sitting here, let me daydream about, or I have the potential to. It literally felt like, you know, if you're hungry and you have the urge to go for food, it literally felt like something's pulling me. So it was more relief to actually follow the urge, if that makes sense. So I guess the idea of starting the business was pulling me, and I honored it. Now, the other moving parts was both my parents are entrepreneurs, so that's really all I know. So watching people, you have an idea and you're responsible for bringing it to life. That's all I've ever seen. So it didn't feel so foreign. Yeah. The urge that I was feeling felt like something on my shoulder. I'd be in class, I'd be studying. I would actually make a great grade on an exam, but the satisfaction that you think you would have
didn't happen.
I would still go to sleep with my leg tapping until I realized like you just need to go.
How were your parents' reactions to like what was that like? You would think they're like, oh, I got 2 entrepreneurial parents and I'm trying to jump. They would be full on supportive.
Flashbacks. So
we don't want to have any PTSD. We don't want to trigger anything.
So what was interesting is I gave away my room. I basically made it official so that
there was no going back.
There was not going back. So I didn't tell them anything. What I did was draw up a business plan, and that's what I was working on. Like after finals and everybody was partying, I was like, how am I going to play this card? So I drew up a business plan, and I made a contract that said if I don't open the business in 1 year, I will go back to college. No questions asked. And I made really good grades. My freshman year, I was going to be on or eligible, very strong eligibility for a scholarship the next year. So with them knowing that, like, they had me the first year.
Right.
And I was responsible for myself the rest of the 3 years. So that's why I was going hard on the grades so I could get a scholarship. So the fact that I did everything and they knew that, and then I'm coming home talking about scratch it. So real quick, my mom was like, nope. No, I don't understand. Like, you can open your business after you graduate college. It'll actually help you. It'll be beneficial. And my father was the opposite. I think he understood the urge because he's experienced that. Me and my dad move a lot alike. So in him, I found the comfort of this is what it looks like, and let's go for it. But in my mom, It probably took about, I would say probably like 3.5 years before it was like not a
Something that
topic
was
of-
bringing,
like,
they
how,
bring
like,
it up
don't
every
bring
once in
that
a
up,
yeah.
don't, it
Yeah.
took a minute, but now.
I don't know why parents do that.
Yeah, why do parents do that?
I don't know. I've never been a parent, so I don't know. Maybe I'll
Not
understand one day. They do that thing where they like bring it up but don't bring it up.
Yeah, and then they look for your reaction.
Exactly.
Like,
They're like gauging you. They're like, yeah, are you?
yeah.
You,
I'm like, no, I'm still dropping out.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Right.
Still
right.
dropped out. 12 years strong.
It still is what it is. You know.
Still moving.
For me, it was quitting my job.
Mm.
It's like leaving Coca-Cola. My mom was like, it's like, yeah,
Why
that's,
would you do such?
yeah. What's going on?
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, it's time
Yeah. And I think when you have a fit, like when you know, you gotta go.
for sure.
Yeah.
Best move ever.
Yeah.
So you come back. You let's unpack that period. I don't want to move on yet. Let's unpack that period of like you're literally running a business while everybody else is like doing what you do between 19 and 22, which is a lot of nothing, a little bit of everything and a lot of nothing.
Well, it's an interesting experience watching the friends that are in college. They're pledging, they are going to parties, they are posting. I got off of social media when I came home from school.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the main reason, because I couldn't stay focused in my world, because you're looking at your peers and you're like, am I missing out on an experience that I could have Can this experience happen 4 years later? And I still have all these experiences that I cannot go back and have those. So it was challenging, but I was so focused and I had so much to do, like understanding taxes and opening a salon, getting the equipment and the loans, or I actually didn't do any loans. So figuring out strategy-wise and studying Chick-fil-A and Trader Joe's, studying these models and like, how am I going to marry that?
What were you picking up from those models? Like, what were you looking for? Was it like a service thing or? Oh, okay.
Efficiency, consistency, a brand. Literally, when you're at Chick-fil-A, you are not confused about where you are. You're not thinking about Bojangles when you're at
Hey, look, or better yet, based off of what is happening on it or was happening on the internet, so you ain't thinking about Popeyes.
No.
If you have Chick-fil-A.
No. So I just loved how efficient it was. And my idea was, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to knock it out the park. And why wouldn't I study businesses that are doing such a great job that I actually enjoy going to? But keep in mind, in the industry, the beauty industry, efficiency and excellence is little to none, unfortunately. You know, everybody's doing their own thing, moving at their own pace, and the structure, it just creates this void in the industry that I didn't want to be a part of.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. My first job was Chick-fil-A.
Oh, inside scoop.
Yeah, in high school. I was spending my Chick-fil-A checks on like sneakers. It's actually very interesting. So I worked at the one right here on Whitehall Commons, like straight up South Tryon.
Yeah.
And I would drive down South Tryon, and I would get to the Bank of America that's like right there.
Yeah.
And I would cash my check, and then I would get to the end of South Tryon. This is back when like Black Sheep and Niche and all that was right here on Camden.
The good days.
And I would spend all my money.
How do you feel about this now?
Put gas in my car, and then drive back up South Tryon with no money, but like
you was
car
fly.
full of. I was fresh.
Look, priorities.
That was the goals. That was the reason. It was like my mom's not buying $40 T-shirts, so I need to go to Chick-fil-A so I can buy $40 T-shirts and $100 sneakers and $100 G-Shock watches and all of that. I want to live that lifestyle again. He's like, how do I feel about that now? It's like, I want to go back. That's how I feel about it.
Reminiscing, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of worse now. Shouldn't work in the fashion industry. Anyway, so you got off social media, kind of started to create your own kind of ecosystem for yourself. What does that look like? What is a day like as 19, 20, 21-year-old Amber getting the business off the ground? What's the day-to-day?
That's such a good question. Nostalgia. Music, no cable, no TV, and literally I was spending time in my mind and trying to get these formulas out and on paper. And that literally, that's literally what it was. I would wake up, put a playlist on, get inspired, and like just go to work. And that literally was the routine. And then go, work at the salon. But while I'm coloring or assisting or shampooing at this particular salon, I would take bathroom breaks, writing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Take my camera and write it down. So it's like my whole world, it felt like Inspector Gadget. Like, you know what I mean? Like my whole world was like, how am I going to make this thing work? And keeping in mind, I told them a year. Right. And then also keeping in mind, I was 19.
So you had to get all the experience and get the spot open in a year. You had to get like all of the...
And get my cosmetology license because I had to go...
Oh, yeah, take like the board.
Go to the board.
Yeah, take all the exams.
For the exam. So there wasn't really time to... Once social media, and then also everybody was gone. All my friends were still in college. So I'm in Charlotte by myself. I'm not going to high school, hanging around high school like, oh, Lord, she done dropped out. And now she walking up and down Batesford Road. Like, no. So I was just grind mode. I think the most interesting part is once I opened it, because I can't carry the bills by myself. So I also started hiring people right then. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's when I remember 19, 20, 21, and 22, identity crisis, not from the college perspective, but more so I never employed anyone younger than me or my age. So it was, I felt like I was trying to, like, like this persona of what a boss would be.
Supposed to be, yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm just me. So the challenge of trying to, and then when you're 19 and 20 and 21, you're still trying to figure out who you are yourself. So I'm hiring people, still trying to figure out who I am as an individual, and then pretending to, I was a boss, but pretending this persona of a boss, which was exhausting because it wasn't my natural nature.
What is when you say pretending? Because there are a lot of people there are probably a lot of pretend bosses that may come across this content. So what is a pretend? what does a pretend boss look like, or what is projecting? What does projecting leadership look like?
You gotta use your words.
I studied a little bit.
So for what it looked like for me, and it definitely morphed.
Right.
But what it looked like for me in the beginning, I would have meetings with my staff, and something would come up, and I just needed a moment. I'm like, I don't know that. Like, I had a handbook. I had, everything printed up. All my stylists had contracts. It was very... But if a question would come up or something that I hadn't thought of, I would literally go to the bathroom, YouTube it, and whoever I YouTube, whatever they were doing, it seemed to flow on over. Like, it's really important that you like stay focused on like all of like it was a lot. And honestly, I don't feel like I remember actually putting it on. It's just that I was trying to survive each unknown moment, and they were back to back to back to back to back to back.
Right.
Hiring people, firing people. Like, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to fire somebody?
Well, so when you talk about like hiring and firing, because traditionally in the industry, it's like a booth rent model, right? Oh. So did you have a different model where
I
you?
Did.
Okay.
I created a model where I merged booth rent and commission. I called it Booth Mission.
Inventive.
I was very excited about that. So basically, I studied each model and then took the pros of each and then just merged them together. So commission is consistency. It's my rule book. It's, everything is the same. So no stylist had a different price list. No stylist had different products. We were Chick-fil-A. The booth rent part comes from me being a stylist and an owner. You need to make money.
Right.
People on commission don't stay in commission because there's not a way for you to really make your coins. So I kept the booth rent portion and then created the commission portion. And interestingly enough, my employees were corporate women that decided to leave corporate America, went to school. They were my clients, went to school, and then came back and worked for me. So culture was already there.
There, yeah, because that's the reason that they were coming to you in the
Yeah.
first place.
So it wasn't I had to sell you on this booth mission. I had to sell you on we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do this. It was literally like they came because of the peace they felt. And sometimes you don't want to have to think about this price point or, all of these things.
Yeah.
So it worked. It was easy. Like the hiring part, I actually had no struggle because they just kept coming. There was 5 women. And so salon has been open 12 years. So 8, and they had low turnover rate. So the women stayed with me for probably 4 to 5 years. So, and all had 7 booths. So that part was, the model part
Yeah.
was
What's
better.
down?
Yeah.
Were you ever thinking about like franchising that?
Yeah. Well, it only makes sense.
Right.
But then my heart,
Mm-hmm.
I really experienced some trauma. I was traumatized. Just the intensity of from 19 to 25, just going, figuring stuff out, being responsible for other people. If there was a challenge, I was always solving the challenges. Like, what do you do when a client comes in that is not a Chick-fil-A client, but they're coming in because they want that Chick-fil-A
Service. Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you throwing off the whole vibe. So how am I going to fix this?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's where in this industry everything goes and it's so lax that I had to figure out a way to keep the integrity of the experience. So I felt like, again, Inspector Gadget, I was always figuring out these things.
It's truly an experience too. I'm a Juvie customer. It's amazing.
Whoop, whoop.
Nothing like it. But no, so like what happened at 25? Where you just like from 19 to 25 you were, so what happened at 25 that like caused something to change up?
So at 25, there was a moment where one of the employees did something with a client, and literally, I'm sure I was red. Like I remember like I gotta step away, but I was so disappointed that the suit I was wearing or trying to be a certain way, my anger or that situation, I couldn't do it. So when I approached her to address it, it was me. Like it was me. And nothing happened. The walls didn't fall down or the model didn't crash. Like it was so therapeutic that it was a challenging moment, but I experienced just being myself, and I couldn't put the suit on anymore because I didn't realize how weighed down I was from wearing the suit for so long that I'm like, wow, hold on. And everything went smoothly. Like I literally held her accountable. I'm like, you know inside of you that wasn't your best. And if you're not going to show up as your best, why am I here? I'm giving my best to you. And I'm creating this structure. I go home and I think about all of this every night. You go home and you just go home. You got to show up for me because I'm showing up for you. And that was just regular conversation.
Oh, so I thought you gave her some Betty's Ford West Side. I thought you gave her, she was making it seem like she was like, I thought you gave her some of that.
That's interesting.
That's
what I was doing when I was trying to suit up.
Oh.
The breaking point was just like me keeping it real. And then I realized the real me was the real.
Yeah.
Like the real was, I'm giving this my all. I dropped out of school. I got my parents on my back. Like I'm here. And I think that this just real moment, I wasn't yelling, I wasn't loud, but after that moment, I feel like I was getting ready to turn 26. After that moment, I was like, I can do this. But then I had to figure out how to allow myself to be myself, which I am at home, but these people have known me for how many years now as a particular way.
Yeah.
So it was the weirdest.
Yeah.
That was weird. It was like, I'm going to show up myself, but they looking at me like, oh, she's casual today. Maybe she's, and I'm like, well, no, I'm casual, but my expectations are the same. And they needed a period to adjust.
Yeah.
So that was I don't know. That one, I was just tired. And energetically and then, customer service, you're dealing with different energy every hour on the hour.
Yeah. That's, I feel like retail, like most of my experience is like retail. So like, well, retail and then like corporate. And then I don't even know what to call what I do now. But I feel like retail is like a microcosm of that. It's like different energy like every 30 seconds.
Oh.
Or like every 45 seconds.
That's a lot.
Somebody's coming through the door, and it's like your job to kind of
That's a lot.
try and anticipate the need or figure out what the need is. Or we're really not even trying to anticipate or figure it out. You can really just ask them. But most people who are entering retail, like everybody think about you enter the retail, you barely even talk to the greeter. They're like, hey, how you doing today? You're like, all right, I'm just looking. It's like, dang, bro. I was genuinely wondering if you was having a good day. But it's cool. I mean, I was going to sell you some jeans too, but I was just going to see if you was okay first. You know what I mean? But yeah, like, especially being in a mall, like it was just like constant, like people coming through. You know, So I can only, like, it's like, that's like a short burst. And then the other end is like what you were dealing with these kind of like hour-long, in-depth excursions. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like the flip side of the coin, the other end of the spectrum.
It is. Well, I think one thing that I genuinely appreciated, which was an amazing learning lesson, when you go into Chick-fil-A, you move a certain kind of way. Or Trader Joe's. Because I know I'm different in Trader Joe's than I am at the Bilo on Sugar Creek, you know? So Juvie, the atmosphere was so solid that the people adjusted their energy once they got there. And then having an hour-long conversation where I'm holding the space, it was more you adjusted to my energy, which I feel like was the therapeutic element that allowed for the clientele to grow as quickly as it did.
And when you talk about clientele growing as quickly as it did, we're talking about, so this was, give me the years for this.
So I opened the business 2007, and I had a full clientele, not taking on new clients, beginning of 2009. So
2 years, and you did that, bum, bum, bum. Actually, it wasn't as big as a thing then, I guess, as it is now, but still, you did it with no social media.
I did no advertisement.
No advertising. No nothing.
The business has opened.
No marketing.
Well, there was one CIAA where a client made flyers for me because she wanted to put them at her party. Well, so making flyers on other people's money. that was a good one.
So the only marketing that you did have was free marketing. Well, actually, that's all marketing. That's, word of mouth. That's the best form of marketing and advertising.
I have 4 clients that literally, they went to their job and then brought their clients. And so I had 4, and those 4 turned into, and I still see them. I have clients that I still see them.
That is amazing.
They're family.
Do you realize like how amazing that is? Do you like ever sit back and reflect like, yeah, that's kind of crazy? Like I haven't done any of this before. I've never had a website. I don't have a Facebook page. Like it's like book me. That's it.
I think because I'm not a part of the world, because I still am not
that's true.
Social, that I don't see it. Not to say that I don't acknowledge it, but it's like that's all I know.
Right.
So I don't think about strategy in that way. I think about strategy in terms of quality. Yeah. In terms of satisfaction.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like an ultimate reverse engineering of
absolutely
of the customer, like putting yourself at the as the end user, and then like setting up a full experience based off of like that.
It's the gift and the curse, because that's the challenge that I've experienced in the latter part. I put myself primarily in the customer seat and in the stylist seat, and I created from that perspective. And then from the boss perspective, I didn't create a formula that took care of me. I created a formula that took care of everybody else. And then my bank account showed that I didn't put myself as
Isn't that the interesting thing, though, about kind of like entrepreneurship or capitalism, if you will? Like, it's kind of designed in that way, where you almost have to prioritize self. And like we have these newer models that are like social entrepreneurship, but generally speaking, it's about like having the most for yourself.
It is. I think for me, it was value, self-value. Like I didn't allow myself to receive based on the value I was putting out, because I thought about myself as a stylist. I didn't think about myself as someone who is literally keeping this ambiance, keeping everything flowing, and I should get paid accordingly for all of that. And I totally didn't do it.
So you,
I was making the same amount.
So you, I would say, yeah. So you like paid yourself as a stylist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clients, you know.
Right.
And yeah, I didn't allow myself to, like, you know, well, luckily, or I'm very proud to say, all of the stylists that worked with me have went on to open their own business. So that feels good, adding back to the ecosystem. But just creating the formula that allowed for me to be honored because they opened their business. It's like going to school. You pay tuition. Yeah. Like they just came to
like an
work.
alum.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you got alums out there floating around.
Should have been some tuition paid because we put in work.
You probably could charge tuition now. It probably ain't too late. Ain't nobody doing this.
I need back pay. I'm going to call it.
Hey.
I need back pay.
Hey, you could tax to the point where you feel like you're getting back pay. You know what I'm saying? You got the
camera discussion.
I feel it. Right. New models emerging.
Not even back pay. It was, I just think, learning lesson now is when you learn something, go ahead and implement it then. I figured that out when I was ready to purchase a home. That was a whole thing. But when you're really concerned about your finances because you need them to be where you need them to be. And I was like, well, then you start questioning your value because you need something. You're like, where's my value exchange? And I'm like, oh wow, I did this to myself. You know, I'm sure the owners of Chick-fil-A are making more than the employees of Chick-fil-A. It sounds like common sense, but when you're there with them, like we're together, like we're side by side. I didn't separate myself. I'm like, we're in this. I'm like, no, I'm the one to go home and pay these light bills.
Right.
The employees of Chick-fil-A, they go home.
Right.
They don't pay nothing else. So that won't be happening again. So that was a hard lesson learned. And
I'm sure it was.
Pretty permanent.
Took a couple of years.
In there. Yeah, it did.
That's most lessons, though, in life. You feel like?
I feel like, but I also feel like you got to have some self-reflection to figure out your formula. Figure out your habits. Yeah. I was sitting in it too long, and I feel like if you can reflect on yourself, like you can switch up those things and make the distance or the time shorter. So now I learn a lesson, and I go right to my journal and I write it down. I'm like, how can we implement this across board? Because a lot of them are emotional. You know, some things are just knowledge. You know, now I know, so it's easy to implement. Right. But a lot of stuff is how can I not beat myself up about the amount of time that went past that I was doing this thing. It's like you get into this cycle and it's like, well, that cycle doesn't benefit me when I could literally just take the lesson
and change it. Implement. Keep it pushing. Yeah,
you have to implement, you know, that whole changing is a thing, you know, but then work a new muscle and get a new habit going that's actually going to benefit me in more than one way.
For sure.
Yeah.
And now moving into like a much more creative space.
Yeah.
After 12 years of being a business owner and like navigating, I think, so we established off camera prior to that, we met 4 years ago. And was that the beginning of this transformation? Were you already in it? Where were you at that moment? Because the reason I asked that is because I remember the conversation we had. So we got introduced from a mutual friend, shout out Jason Jett. We were at an event. And he was like, oh, bro, you need to link with my homegirl, Amber. Like, y'all will vibe. And so I just walked up, started the conversation. And it was just like, yo. He was like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, at that point, I'm like, you know, I still don't know how to answer that question, right? But at that point, it's just like, oh, well, like, I just do anything that sits at the intersection of creativity and business. Yeah. And you were like, oh, we definitely need to link up then. Yeah. And I think we meet like every other week.
Yeah, for like, that was the brainstorming.
Yeah, we met like every other week at Starbucks for like, how long was that period?
It was initially a chunk of time.
It was.
And just exploring creative ideas. And yeah, I think for me in that time, because I didn't allow for entrepreneurship to be a creative thing. It was black and white in my mind. Right. But now I understand, like, to me, that's art that's created every single day. Meaning I walk in, my energy comes into this place, and it's the tuning fork. I set the tuning fork for the employees. I set the tuning fork for my clients. But you're just creating.
Mm-hmm.
You're creating the music playlist. You're creating a vibe. And to me, that's like living art. That's art that you can't take a picture of. It's experiential art that you're responsible for maintaining its integrity on a regular basis. So because I didn't realize that, I think I was extremely thirsty for just a different type of relief that didn't have to deal with taxes and responsibility. Yeah, so just exploring and then being very timid about it because is my perspective cool? Like, or what if I'm thinking about this or that? Is it on point? Or like, keeping in mind I'm off the grid naturally.
Oh yeah, so like there's no that's
gauge here.
Yeah, that's interesting because from like all of creativity or art is like based off references. So like if you don't have a reference, then you don't really know how to. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So I felt like I was optimistic and very, like ready.
Yeah.
But then just as much as I was excited, I was unsure, which is like lame. It was very taxing. So, but then, time goes on and you realize I feel that I am an individual expression, as we all are. And what is exciting or aesthetically pleasing to me is specifically because I'm designed a particular kind of way.
Right.
So what is comparison? Maybe comparison if there was another,
right.
of me. But outside of that, it's like I have to get the confidence to know that if it's fly to me, it's because it's fly.
It is, yeah. You gotta lean. You gotta lean into it.
Yeah.
And half of it is like, it's almost like there are certain people who just pull off certain things. Almost like you think about like somebody like a 3 Stacks and like what he wears. It's like only Andre 3000 is going to be able to wear that. And it's just because he's got that he just got that thing. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He's just like, oh, bruh, you can't tell him he wasn't fresh when he stepped up out the crib this morning. And that is like what he's wearing. He's wearing like
that
parachute,
that plastic bag,
like
earrings,
those parachute whatever
heels,
with the platform,
shoes.
like but he, you know what I mean, he just got this.
Mm-hmm.
This is it.
Mm-hmm.
This is it.
And it's so therapeutic to watch him because if I want to wake up and put on a plastic bag, I want to do it like Andre 3000. You know what I mean? Like that's how I want to do it. So. Right. Yeah. That's
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. But yeah, so like, what are you doing now? Like, what are you working on now? What space are you in now in terms of like, what phase is the business in? If you could articulate it, what phase are you in? Like, you're obviously doing more creative things. Like when we met, you were on a DJ stint. Mm-hmm. You obviously you've always been like writing and journaling. I don't know if that's going to lead to like a book or anything like that.
For sure.
But
it should,
like
as much as I wrote.
Notebooks. Yeah. Notebooks on notebooks on notebooks.
Yeah, for real. I got stacks. Stacks of something. Stacks of notebooks. So the business, starting the business at 19 and now being 33, I realized I had a challenge in shifting from how to shift. Mm-hmm. When if I shift, everything that I've created, does it need to shift with me? Does it stand on its own? Of course, from like a business, very black and white standpoint, it's kind of like you start your business and then you create your business so that it can work on its own. Right. But I felt that I was the pulse of it. Mm-hmm. And I think just being young, like I just felt like nobody's going to do it like me. They're not going to.
That's not being young. I think that's like owning something. Okay. I think that's just like for real, just like if you ever create something, it's just like you can never expect anybody to. It's just the ownership thing, I think.
It was my baby.
Yeah.
And I guess it was just too much time. So much time invested. Now, also keeping in mind, when I came home from school, I said I would do something different every decade. So it was year 7 or 8, and I started itching. Mm-hmm. But exposure is a big thing because it would have benefited me to be around people who have taken the business from this level and scaled it and or if they didn't scale it, leave it how it is and allow for it to be self-maintaining. So lack of exposure just had me like I gotta find relief. So about a year ago, I let go of all of my employees, and then no, a year and a half ago, probably 2 years now, and then I let go of about 75% of my clientele, and during that time, spent time basically chasing my tail around in a circle, like trying to I thought that the space would come and then all of a sudden the revelation would just drop down. Like I'm just working too much. If I wasn't working so much, then where I'm supposed to be is just going to be super clear. That didn't happen. And months passed, and now I'm sitting here with the revelations of a lot of different revelations that allow for me the freedom to actually just be. Doing a lot of overthinking, a lot of feeling interesting, like this double energy of one is I'm so proud of myself for being courageous to do this thing. Like I built a business, I can build another one. You know, I'm honoring myself and da 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 da. And then on the other side is like, this doesn't make sense because your money has decreased significantly. And now the lifestyle needs to be adjusted to, you know what I mean? So it's just like this double, like I'm proud, but I'm sad. And I don't know what to do, but I'm proud, and I'm going to do something different. But what are you going to do? Well, your bills still need to get paid while you're trying to figure out what it is you're going to do. So now...
That's interesting, though, because there's still parallels. I think in someone that was, like, trying to build a business and trying to do something creative, I think there's a lot of parallels in that. Because it's like you're happy that you're taking steps towards, like, creating the life you want to live. But at the same time, there are these like hard realities that we all have to like live with and that we all have to deal with, whether it is like bills or family or relationships or whatever it is. There are still these kind of like rigid, concrete things that exist outside of like whatever it is you're trying to build, and you still have to manage those things appropriately. So I think there's a lot of parallels. I think that's just like a life thing. Yeah, it's interesting.
It is, and things are different. So I lived at home with my parents until I saved up to buy a home. So I lived at home until I bought a home. Well, going through all of those, you know, things, the 19-year-old and doing all this, I just come home. And then my mom would have the macaroni and cheese and the food was there and my bed was there and, you know, the responsibility wasn't there. So I had the room to like do what I needed to do and be taken care of.
Right.
But now it's like,
you got to take care of yourself still. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well,
sure.
This is new. Yeah. Even though a lot of stuff that is old and familiar, which is like big boy stuff, but it's like this thing right here is new for me. That's probably not new, you know, for other people. So, but what's the question? To answer the question, like I'm still figuring that out. But now I'm in a space where I can allow all of me to show up and do what I really want to do. Like the artist in me, the aesthetics that I want to experience, the music that I want to experience. I'm a teacher by nature, and I realize I enjoy teaching more than I do running the business. Like now that I've learned how to run the business, I get geeked out about let's package that into a lesson, because entrepreneurship isn't sexy. Like it's a lot of black and white, but well, people try to make it sexy walking around like, yeah, I'm owning a business. But it's like getting down to the nitty gritty. It's like going to the tax man and figuring out stuff is very like daunting. And reading the books is like black and white paper. And I'm like, the experience of literally creating something is like no other. And the experience of doing that and learning about it should be just as energetically exciting. So basically take all these lessons, package them up, add a scent, add a soundtrack, add high-end aesthetics, and switch it up a little bit. I feel like people out of the gate, like the challenges that people had starting a business, and when I go like to panels and hear people talking, it's always like doomsday. And I'm like, it wasn't doomsday. It was a lot of work.
Right.
But it wasn't doomsday. Like my clientele flowed, my employees flowed. People were return clients, like the whole not having any marketing or anything and having full clientele where I would go to these events and they're like, you gotta grind, you can't sleep, you gotta market, you gotta da 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 da. And I'm like, if you follow your natural nature and honor who you genuinely are, you can create something that will naturally attract your tribe. So you don't have to sift through everyone. You just need to attract who is naturally attracted to you.
There's an interesting concept. It's like the concept of having a niche, right? Like there's a watch like a lot of like marketing design type of stuff. I think I might have been watching a video on Future, and they were talking about Future's like a design YouTube channel. It's Future without the E, Futur.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about like once you get like very, very specific,
mm-hmm.
you then open yourself up even more. Like
Absolutely.
you realize like there's a kind of a natural
Absolutely.
flow to it, as opposed to being like, oh, I do everything for everybody. It's like, no, I do like logos and websites for nonprofit organizations.
Mm-hmm. And it's a magnet.
And then you open yourself up to being able to do all of those. I think we forget a lot of times, like just as people in general, we forget like just the scale of like people in general. You know what I mean? Like there's however many people, it used to be 7 billion, 6 billion, however many people on the planet. And it's like, bro, you don't think 10,000 people got nonprofits that would pay you X number of dollars? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like you think you're going to get in contact with all 10,000 of them people
Absolutely.
between now and 100? Like, you know what I mean? Like we forget about like the actual scale because we like playing it almost too close to the chest.
Absolutely.
So like we forget about like how many people really exist and how much opportunity there really is. It's almost like about retraining your thinking a bit.
And allowing yourself to actually be in joy. Like I think that people think about numbers, but they don't think about, like me when I first started, I said I need 45 clients at this price point, and it's going to get me the finances that I need. All I need is 45 women in the city of Charlotte. So am I just going to take, it's not any woman, it's more so, am I going to force fit people when I know that there are thousands of women in Charlotte? I know that there's 45 women where the conversations that we would naturally have is aligned. The hairstyles that they want naturally align. The type of experience that they literally fuels them would literally be the same type of experience that giving it to them fuels me. So it's literally when you hone in and honor who you are naturally, which you have to explore yourself, which is an interesting thing. Like actually, like what do I like? What do I actually like? Because people talking about money. Like I like money. I want the clients to come in, or I want this opportunity. And it's like, what's the point of getting it if you are miserable while you're experiencing it?
Right.
So if you just tune in and tap into what actually makes you, and I do that by the feeling tone of satisfaction. Like when I feel satisfied, what is that? What am I doing? All right, let's put that in black and white.
Right.
So like rejuvenation of hair and spirit. I had to put the spirit part. It was like, well, is this a voodoo shop? And look, the name of it is Juvie.
Hey,
and
look.
I wasn't even thinking about it. I can look at the homie in the back because that was when Juvenile was out. And I'm like, is this going to sound like the Juvie Detention Center? Or is it going to sound like Juvenile, like Juvie? And I was like, it was rejuvenation. Like as soon as I saw rejuvenation, the word Juvie popped out. And it's like to honor that. You know what I mean? When it was like, yeah, it do sound like maybe you do a kid juvenile, the children at the Juvie Center. Like, I don't know. But just those small things, but the rejuvenation of hair and spirit, that one tagline attracted my type of employee and my type of client. And I'm like, you can build this thing and not go through the self-inflicted struggles that are the byproduct of not honoring who you are. Like everything's just better.
I tell you, we might as well be a voodoo shark, because when I be in that shampoo bowl, boy,
we got stuff floating through the air.
Right, it's another world. Yeah. I started to understand, like, I understand why that's probably not why it's an all day thing for some women, but I could understand how it is all day thing. But I would sit in the shampoo bowl until it's like right to the point where it's like, okay, it's unhealthy at this point. Like I would sit there that long. Like
see, so while I'm literally like arm about to fall off, just
right,
shampooing like
just like
see that how that
oh,
happens.
oh my gosh,
See how that's a one-sided experience.
oh 100%,
The strong arm just tired. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a yeah. Anybody. I think that just got to be we got to start. Men have to start taking better care of ourselves, bro.
Absolutely.
For real.
Y'all
like
have
even
hair?
if that's what I'm saying. Even if you got waves,
Y'all have hair?
like you got bro. You should really just be getting your hair shampoo. It just hit different.
Your cuticles need our cuticles need what our cuticles need. No discrimination. Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
So where are you headed now? We talked about
we talked about
kind of where you're at, but where's your trajectory? Like, what are you thinking about? Where are you feeling? Where do you feel like you're going?
Nothing, and I love this, that my initial thought was nothing is concrete. And that just feels so great.
Mm-hmm.
Like coming home from school was very concrete and I was attached to the building and to everything. Literally, I enjoy making experiences and I enjoy teaching. So I want to create I am creating the most amazing lesson plans.
Words are important.
Yeah, they are. And the people that are attracted to the lesson plan, we're going to experience it in the most amazing places. Around the corner, most amazing place, or in another country. And I feel like the lessons that I've learned in my 20s, I would absolutely love for people to have this information and experience shortening that time frame to elevated money, elevated joy, elevated experience, elevated knowledge of self. Like, just imagine, like, getting to the root of who you are and creating formulas that capitalize your joy and your money. And you can do that in like a 6-month time frame as opposed to my learned lessons over 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then just have fun doing it. Like, it needs to be all the aesthetics that make me feel how I like feeling. Satisfied.
You just mentioned something else that made me think about something else. Because you said, or in another country. Mm-hmm. You're pretty well traveled.
Yeah.
Where all have you been internationally?
I have been, my first trip was Hong Kong. And then then South Africa, Europe. So I did Spain, Rome, Italy, then Bali, then back to South Africa, and some island places, Anguilla. Mm-hmm. That's what I did. Like I made these stacks, and I took myself to a different type of seclusion.
Right.
Yeah. No.
For sure.
But yeah, that was my.
What did you get? What did you get from those experiences? Like, what is it about traveling internationally that makes you continue to travel internationally, or what is it that?
People living their authentic lives. Mm-hmm. Like when I travel, I like to travel and be amongst the people. And
you mean you ain't got? Well, you just now getting on the gram, so you ain't really had to flex at the resort. You know what I'm saying? You really had to flex with your toes in the sand. You know what I mean? Drinking your drink with the umbrella and all that.
I feel like I would be awkward flexing. You know what I mean? Like, look where I am. You know, like, no, just stop. Don't do it. No, I just like, well, okay. If I keep it all the way real. So I have something called a God pot. And anytime I got paid in a $50 or $100 bill, I would put that money in the pot. And then I would say whatever.
Did you say the God pot or the guide pot?
God.
G-O-D.
It sounds like it should be glowing, made out of gold, like God.
Like the case on Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
You open a briefcase.
God. The capital G-O-D. But yeah, I was just led to $50 and $100 bills. Anytime they would hit my hand, they would go in the pot. So what would happen is opportunities would just show up. I never planned any of these trips. So someone would be like, oh, and then the most recent one I forgot was Dubai. I just had a client that was like, well, I'm flying to Africa and I have a layover in Dubai. You want to go? And then I would say, let me get back to you. I go to God Pot. The money's there. And then I go. So I like planned things. Like business was very planned, and then I like spontaneity. So then the spontaneity comes from that. So really, my travels, I feel like opportunity. You know what I mean? Like I didn't plan them. I didn't make myself international. The That's where I ended up going.
That's interesting. It was kind of like that for me too. I just took my first international trip. You know this already. The end of last year. I don't know if I've said this on a previous episode or not. Either way, people are gonna hear the story again because I think it's important for people to hear. Because it's similar to in terms of just like setting your intention. I bought my passport in March with like no intentions of going anywhere. Just bought it. It was just like a goal. So just like just put the money aside, just buy it. Even though you're freelancing, even though like whatever all the excuses, buy the passport. Bought the passport in March. Sat in the envelope once it came in the mail. Just put it in the office. It was just sitting there. December comes, and the homie texts me right now. I go to sleep early one night. My homie texts me at like midnight. I wake up. I see the message next morning. Do you want to go to Tokyo?
Yes.
The answer is yes, but I'm also like, huh? How? Why? What?
Yeah.
What's like? What? Somebody just, do you want to go to Japan? Like that's just a random text message to get at midnight. You know what I'm saying? Like randomly. Like why are you? How does this thing? So I text him back. I'm like, yeah, but like, what do you need? He's like, nothing, bro. Just like the flight's taken care of. Like you just need to split an Airbnb and like,
nice.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Amazing.
Yeah. So
That's
it's
the way
just
to
like,
do it.
yeah, for sure. But I think that it just comes from like setting your intention on, or like taking that step, putting the money away, buying the passport, starting the business plan, taking the class, doing the whatever is breaking that current routine or whatever it is that like pushes you. It's just taking that one like small step.
Absolutely.
And then like that little piece of setting your intention kind of like has its own little
blooms.
webs. Yeah.
Yeah, you plant the seed and it's gonna bloom. I think it's always interesting to see what comes out of it. Like, so letting go of expectation and just like something feels good about doing this, let me just keep doing it. And all of those experiences, 100% of my travel experiences, DJing, all of that came from the God Pot. So, yeah.
Get yourselves a God Pot, folks. Only $15.95.
Mine was oh no, I won't disclose any details about the God Pot.
Like, right.
She's
like, that's what, right. She's at the house.
Like, hold on now.
Exactly.
Who's that knocking at the door? At the West Side Oasis.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
It's gonna be a situation.
But nah, I don't really have any other questions or anything. Is there anything you want to say? We could take some questions from the audience. This is like the first time I've done an episode like this. I've just been needing to, I've just been trying to make sure I get the project done. So the goal is to do 12 episodes this year. And work is insane. Life is insane. Keep starting businesses and doing other random shit. So like,
you out here moving.
There's stuff, but the project has to get done. So I've been like messing with the format. So this is the first time that I've done like on purpose, like private, invite your own people who you want to be in the room episode. And I don't know. Like I also felt like it was necessary since you're like now stepping into like the digital, as I put in the Instagram post that I posted prior to this, like right before we started, like the digital abyss that is like the internet, and like being consistent and like posting and telling stories and stuff like that. I was like, let me add to that and give her a comfortable space to be able to tell the story with people that she values and stuff like that. So like,
look, if this is the internet experience, sitting in your living room with the people you know.
Oh no, the internet part hasn't started yet. This is the real life part. You know what I'm saying?
I can do this part.
The internet part. The internet part is when I hit you with the Dropbox file and I'm like, hey, Will's done editing. You should post this clip.
You do that? Yeah, I'm gonna need the step by step.
You should post this clip right here. You know what I mean?
Dun, dun. Oh, hold me accountable because we're. Okay.
Accountability.
Right. I see.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, as far as questions goes, these people know me, so.
Any questions from the audience? Oh yeah, hand shot up quick.
My question would be for having a tenure of 12 years in a business model that usually we see fall by the wayside after a couple of years or so. Like we see shops close like as soon as they open. Have you ever considered, putting together like online coursework material to be able to, get what it is that obviously has worked for you out to the masses so that maybe some more black salons can stay open 12 years, 15 years, and even to the beyond.
Absolutely. So definitely, I'm in that space now. So this is new news. I am getting my teacher certification license. So that was a good decision, or that was something that was lurking. So I've decided to do that so that I can effectively do what you just said.
Is that a specific to cosmetology?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Specific, yeah.
Got you.
So, but yes, I definitely want to do that. And it's interesting you said for black salons, because I do have a soft spot. And it's interesting to have a soft spot for the black and brown people in this industry when I get the most resistance. You know what I mean? Like when I go into a salon that doesn't have structure, people want to hold on to their individualism, and it's like, it worked for me. People sitting here 5 hours, and I'm like, yeah, but, and it's like, they do not have to change. There's no law saying, state board's not coming in and saying, you're not treating people right, you need to change.
Yeah.
Their formula is working for them and they're getting what they want. And it's like, so it'll be interesting to package this stuff up, but that then also goes back to attraction. When you see better and maybe experience the potential for something different, I hope to be at that point. I hope to be the entry point for the potential of something different, which requires for me to own up that I am different, which is also interesting because since Juvie has been open, it's just been me and my little system. So other businesses or salons don't really experience mine. So yes, I plan on doing all of that. And then it'll be interesting to experience what that experience is. Like, will the people be warm to it and but
I don't think it'll be any different than like your initial experience in like getting clientele. I think the same way that you talked about like attracting who's for you and all of that. I think it'll be I think you'll have a similar experience. So
that's awesome.
We've had like several thank you for that question. Had several conversations in that vein. So
for sure.
I'm excited to hear that there are like steps forward.
Who you telling? I'm excited. I've been sitting over here on this couch. I've been sitting over here just waiting for the world to explain itself. So, yes, I'm excited to get moving in a new way.
Dope.
Sure.
Okay, I have a two-part question. So earlier you mentioned that every decade you wanted to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
What was kind of the thought around that? First question.
Mm-hmm.
Second question, you mentioned about a year and a half ago that you let go of a lot of your employees, and now you're kind of like in a transition phase with the creative world.
Mm-hmm.
How are you able to maneuver like during those difficult times that you're in this creative phase and figuring out what your next step is?
Okay. So first one, reminder.
The decade question.
Decade.
Doing something different every decade.
Yeah. I think I saw my father work at General Tire for 32 years. I saw my mother, as long as I've been born, she started doing hair when I came along. So seeing that, and it just didn't feel like the fullness of life. And I feel like if we're not bound, then why are we binding ourselves? Like I feel like I'm such a diverse person and I get satisfaction from so many different things. And probably because I changed my major 3 times in freshman year. It's like, well, that's all you got to do is just change your mind and go fill out this paperwork.
I think, yeah, I think, I ain't mean to cut you off, but I think that's very interesting. I think that there's I think that's a bigger like generational divide. Like I had the same kind of like thought with like, my mom and like telling her like, yeah, I'm gonna leave this corporate situation and try and figure something out and do something that's a little bit more fulfilling and blah, 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 blah. And I think that is what we see is the friction between 2 generations. It's like you worked this hard and did what you had to do so I could have this freedom. But now that I'm taking advantage of this freedom that was granted by your hard work, it's like now you want to see me almost do it the same way. It's like we have to progress, right? Like the goal is to get to the point where like you have a bunch of black kids that are like the Jaden and the Willows of the world. Maybe not to that extreme, but just to the fact of like you have the opportunity to literally think and dream and create those things and you have the resources to do that. And I think that we're seeing that, I think across just this entire generation, when you talk about like millennials in the workforce and stuff like that, I think we're seeing a lot more of those situations. And a lot of what we experience is the friction between those internally within yourself, because society has kind of set this rubric and it's worked for previous generations, but we also see that it like doesn't necessarily work for us in that way. And we're like creating the systems and the mechanisms and transitioning, like we're just in a generational change. Like the workforce itself is changing from, you know, you working somewhere for 30 years to like the quote unquote like new gig economy and all those types of things where everybody's like a contractor and nobody has health insurance and all these like different types of things.
Talk about it.
So it's like, yeah, I think a lot of it is like that. Like when you talk about like, it's like your parents did what they had to do and then it sets you up in a position where you were like, you've had enough experiences where you're like, I do have options. And it's like, that was the goal. But it's just always interesting in that the dichotomy of like,
it is. And
having to actually execute on that.
Yeah. Or having the courage to do such a thing, because my business was at its peak when I pulled out. So to have the highest amount of money that you're making, joy, satisfaction. Like I feel that we have the opportunity to focus on
100%.
Experience where
100%.
my mom and dad.
It was like, I'm doing what I got to do.
It's not.
I'm doing what I got to do.
And it's also the interesting byproduct of that choice is dealing with or letting go of guilt that I'm not moving the way my parents did, because they are already past that point. So they can't switch up. And it's like, I feel like I'm not necessarily betraying, but it's like, it feels a little uncomfortable. Like, you know, I let go of something at the height of the money coming in and they're like, well, why? I'm like, so I can be happy. Oh.
I didn't know that was what we was doing, because if we was doing happy, you wouldn't dot. You know what I'm saying? Like that, I didn't know we was doing happiness around this mug. Okay, so, it turned into one of them conversations real quick. I wasn't happy when you was in school. I wasn't happy when you was and you just be like, bro, but you did it. Like I ain't had no choice. And nobody tell you not to be happy.
I need to call him now. Like I'm sorry, mama.
Exactly.
I just want to be happy. Just want to smile. But
that's real.
Yeah. So I guess the main cause is like realizing that I'm a creator. We all are creators.
Yeah.
And if I'm a creator, then why am I not creating?
Right.
And if that's what I want to create, if you want to do something, you got to make moves, which means if I open my hand to get something new, I probably have to let what was in there out.
100%.
And that muscle, like it's easy to say it, but like letting it go so that you can actually receive the other thing and knowing that, do you really want both the things in your hand? Because then you can't even grab it. So you got the old thing that's taking up all of this. Then you got this new thing that you want to be really experienced, but it can only like hang on the thumb. So then you end up sad and depressed. So it's like, but I'm a jumper, I jump all in. So it's like, if I'm going to do it, I have to put myself in a position where
I ain't got no choice.
Like this mortgage has to get paid. And if I chose happy, I have to choose it. Mm-hmm. Like I ain't going to give up everything. And then when it gets tough, go back to it. It's like you jump, you just going to have to figure it out. Yeah. Figure it out.
And I feel like that it's like a constant cycle of going through that process. Like that process is always the same. Like it goes from quitting the job or quitting school or whatever it is, and you go through the process to get it, and then you get it, and it's like, okay, cool, this is it. But it's just like, okay, what's the, like, now you got to go through the process again once you realize that, like, it's like cycles.
It is a cycle. And what's interesting is that the skill sets that I learned in the first decade, you think like, okay, we good. The next decade,
transferable, they applicable.
Yo, like where they at? Like, I'm supposed to be good.
Well,
like
the thing
a whole
is,
new set gotta come.
I feel like they are still applicable. I feel like they're kind of like on autopilot, but it's like anything else. It's like once you get to a new level, there are new skills that have to be acquired to be able to like maintain and thrive at that level. So it's like you still got them old skills, you still got what it is, but it's just like it's not. It's like, I don't know. I grew up playing sports, so it's like I remember my first time, like when I was in 8th grade, I was pretty decent, right? And I was getting ready to go play high school basketball. And it was at this high school I was going to, was one of the better guards, even for coming straight out of middle school. Like, the only reason I didn't play varsity my freshman year was because they had like senior point guards that they wanted to make sure graduated, and they wanted me to get more experience in floor time. But I remember going to camp with varsity the summer before and getting into the first like game, and this is like summer league, and just realizing that like the pace and the speed and everything's just different. Like these kids are just like, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, the game's moving faster, the plays are getting called out fast. Like it's just a different, it's not that I wasn't the same skilled player, it's just that the level is like the with the requirements, you know what I'm saying, are higher. So you got to start, you got to get back to putting the work in, and you got to get used to that. You got to build your body up to that level. You got to start going to the weight room. You got to start, you know what I mean? You got to start going through that project. You got to start watching film. You got to start going through the process of it and refining those skills and beefing up those skills, and then acquiring new ones, right? Like if you couldn't go left, if you could probably you could probably get away with it when you was in middle school, but a junior point guard that's been, you know, playing at the high school level, and maybe at this point even playing against college cats in his summer, is not going to let you get away with not being able to use your left hand.
Absolutely.
And I think like advancing in life and like business and stuff like that is like pretty much the same thing. It's like, yeah, bro, when you was running the one store, or when you had the one this or the one that, or you had this set amount of clients, it was all good. But it's like now you're dealing with a different type of clientele, so you're not going to be able to get away with what you got away with on that first level. And
I'm a visual person, so first, you know, I was in sports too. I was varsity soccer team.
Oh, me too. I played 3 years. Shout out to black schools playing soccer. It's lit.
Yeah.
3 years varsity myself in soccer.
Yeah, I was trash, but I made varsity. They keep it all funky.
Hey, look. Should get you out there. I played
at a all blacks West Charlotte High School with a soccer team. Just know there was only enough people on the team.
I was really getting in shape for basketball, but I fell in love with the game because we wasn't winning. Believe that. Like I don't know any black soccer schools that's winning. If it's out there, I may be wrong. If y'all see this and y'all know some all black soccer teams that's giving out that work, let me know because I would love to see it. For real.
I was tripping over my feet left and right. But to say visually, like I think it's interesting because I mean I heard myself say like, oh, what are the lessons? But it's like when you plant a seed and something grows. The thing that's growing doesn't want to like only take me 3 inches and then I'm good and I want all my lessons from the 3 inches. Like you want to grow, and the taller you get, the more territory you see, the more territory that you see, it stimulates the imagination of how you can interact with that territory. So it's like I understand, you know, but it's a difference between understanding something in the black and white and then actually going through the human experience of it. Right. And then letting go of the negative emotion that would have you dreading the human experience. It's like, so I know I'm in a new place. Even like this is new. Like this is very new.
You're handling it well. This is dope. Thank you. This feels like...
You know those ducks? Look, you know those ducks? The ducks, how they like are on the water. Like this, which ducks? But their feet are like...
underneath the water.
It's like, it's interesting. I'm not all the way there, but I'm like, but yes. So that was the 10. Answer that literally, if I have a life to live, I want to experience it including the diversity that's inside of me. And I just gave myself 10 years, and it's like, well, what's the next thing that I really want to experience a peak at? And not wanting it to literally just kind of tap the water on different parts of me. It's like I want to experience the mountain peak of that thing, and then maybe the next thing, and then I'm sure they all merge together. And then the second question was... In the transition phase, how do you maneuver through the difficult moments?
You got a really good memory because we went like... So shout out to
expected.
You. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Transition. So I was a loner, big time loner. And one of the biggest things I realized is that too much time with myself when I'm not creating something just created not healthy environment. One of the biggest things has been having people around expressing more, actually experiencing life. From 19 on grind mode to this time, it's like, I go to restaurants. I haven't done brunch. Like how people go and get cute and go to brunch and have mimosas. Like, I still haven't done that yet. Ugh. sad. But living life and then relaxing, leaning in conversations with friends when things get tough, journaling. And I feel like, honestly, the biggest thing, the transition needed for me to allow myself to keep it real with myself. Like, to keep it real that it's okay that I moved the way I did in my business. Because I didn't realize that I was really beating myself up because I didn't have an example of people that would do such a thing and then do such a thing without a plan. I didn't have a plan at all. Like, my parents were like, why are you doing this? So what's the next step? I don't have a step. I'm doing this so that the step can reveal itself.
Right.
Like, where do they do that at? Like, I couldn't find an example. So then my self-doubt or whatever just started kicking in. And that was the most troubling part of the transition until it's like, look, you gotta, if you're different, then just be different and explore what it is that you are so that you can master what you are and get on with it, as opposed to just trying to search for something in the external world that was going to validate that I made a good decision. So this whole self-acceptance journey, and then having moments of quiet so that I could actually hear that I was attacking myself. Like, I was on attack mode, heavy. But I didn't realize it was attack mode. It's not like I woke up and I was like, oh, yep, I'm attacking myself. It was like a whole week would go by and nothing would happen. I'm like, why? I know I can accomplish things, but why is this happening? It's because I just wasn't allowing myself to be okay with the fact, like, I've made the least amount of money that I've ever made since I've started working. Things are extremely tight, but I'm good. Like, like being okay with the fact that my money levels in the bank are not directly tied to my joy.
Right.
And the moments that the money level started to stress me out was because I started adopting a mindset that I naturally don't have.
Ooh, that's a bar. That's a bar. That's amazing.
I don't remember that. I have to replay that back.
Oh, you will be able to.
Look, put a beat to it.
Yeah, for real. For real.
One day that'll be.
As amazing and eloquent as that response was, I'm just thinking about when my schedule's free so I can get you day drunk at brunch.
Hell, I'm signing up. Like, can we all go? Everybody. I want to do this and like put on a cute little outfit, and people be going. I see them at the.
I'm sure you
the
see
corner,
them.
and they like leaving the restaurant. They just like, yeah, God. And I'm like, yes, it is in the middle of the day. Where'd I do that at? I want to sign. I'm signing up. Yeah.
We'll make that happen. It's on record, so now it has to happen.
Yeah, and living life in the midst of creating.
Yeah.
Like, because I didn't do it. That's why I traveled, because if I'm in the city, I'm thinking about what I have, the garden that I planted in the city. Right. I have to go somewhere else, and it's like I can't. I engulfing myself in another culture so that I could actually cut it off. And I don't like that. I want to get to the point where I can relax here, which is a muscle to work, because I just, grind mode for a decade. You have to retrain.
Yeah. A lot.
And being okay with that.
All right. Well, we got technically about like 10 more minutes. Any more questions? Or is everybody ready to go home? Where are we at? How we feeling? This is a group experience. She's like, I got plenty of questions.
Let them rip.
This may be more of a statement that maybe I would like you to just let the audience know a little bit about. It may have been during your journey of working at the salon, when you have to take a break and go to really a complete place of silence, and I mean literally go to a place of silence. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so silence is interesting for me. So about 3 years ago, I went to a silent meditation retreat. So for 10 days. So there was no books, pens, no noise, no electronics, complete silence. And in that,
so not even any interpersonal communication between humans.
No eye contact with anybody. No noise. The only noise I heard was the crickets that I felt like they was in my room. Like, even when it's quiet, you know how stuff be sounding like, yo,
it's a lot
something
louder
in here.
Yeah,
like,
it's a lot louder.
What's going on?
That's crazy. That's a thing?
Yeah.
You can like go.
I drove 5 hours to Yo, I was scared.
I would have
It
been
was in the
blasting
middle of the
music the whole
woods.
time
Yo, it's
on
in
the
the
way
middle of
there
the-
because I'm like, I'm not about to hear nothing.
No, it's funny. I drove the 5 hours in
In
silence
silence?
so that I could prepare.
Prepare, yeah.
Keep in mind, I'm a loner, so silent music and silence I'm comfortable. Well, I thought I was comfortable with. So I say all that to say my experience of silence was, it was the loudest experience that I had to this day that
Yeah.
I've ever experienced. On day 7, I thought, I got to get out of here. Like I'm like, I'm gonna get my keys. I'm gonna sneak and get my stuff. They take your stuff because people try to leave, you know. But I was left with just my thoughts, and they were extremely loud. Like, you know how you go to a concert and your ears are ringing because you're too close to the speaker? That's what I felt, because I didn't understand that, like, my thoughts are aggressive. But like, we're talking, I can think about, like, oh, did I hit my foot again and mess up the like, you know, like, we got a lot of things going at the same time. But when you are forced to be with yourself, and I realized I haven't experienced silence. I've just been experiencing the internal dialogue that's going crazy in my head. And on day 7, I like literally was like, I'm like, yo, I thought I snapped. I was like, I got to get out of here before something happened that's irreversible. That was horrible.
How'd you like manage the last 3 days?
Well, I ain't gonna say I snapped. Something did happen. It got so loud that I got frustrated. And I remember just like, this ain't it. Like, whatever I came here for, like, you're gonna have to drop it down right now. Like, I can't handle it. And what happened was silence. Like, I got so frustrated that I feel like I yelled at the intensity, and then the intensity listened, and then it was quiet. And that is creepy. So when you talk about silence, that is to experience actual silence where you're not thinking about something. People talk about this in meditation.
Right.
I haven't experienced like just sitting down and just like,
being like completely
you know,
centered, or
that's
like,
not my form.
Yeah.
Music will get me there, but
Right.
I'm not in the quiet room doing that. So like, once I had the experience to actually learn what silence is, then I realized how to work the muscle of true silence in the real world. So silence at the salon looked more like searching for satisfaction. And satisfaction was the feeling tone of the silence that I experienced. I'm going to try to circle back around and see if that can tie together. So I experienced silence, and it was a glorious feeling. Like, it literally felt like if you're floating on the water, and how you can just let go and not be like, oh, can I float? Like, you just have that moment where nothing is happening. It was so therapeutic because I have an overactive mind. So then coming back, the closest I could get to that feeling was leaning towards satisfaction. So like, if you're hungry and you reach for something and you eat it and now you're satisfied. So satisfaction is my gateway to the feeling tone of silence, which is why the transition happened. I wasn't satisfied. Money was good. My employees were happy. They were extremely upset about my decision. Clients extremely upset. But every time I did something and I would hit, like, the contrast of me changing someone else's, it's like, I change, but can I change? Because now I got to change. If I change, I impact everyone else. So then it makes me feel bad for leaning towards satisfaction. But the courage to do it, and then I would literally feel like a weight off my shoulders. I noticed to my employees, tough, tears, hard, very hard. That day ended, and I woke up feeling like,
that's the crazy part. Like, so when I left Coca-Cola, it was December 31st was my last day. So I was originally gonna quit in like October. I gave my 2 weeks in October, and they were like, hey, like, we're gonna have to recruit somebody, because I was in supply chain, so you're not gonna just find somebody to toss in.
Yeah.
Like, it ain't like it was a call center and like that.
yeah.
So it was just like, they were like, hey, like, we're gonna have to find some people, and they were acquiring territory too. So they were like, hey, like, you know, we're gonna have to find somebody to recruit and retain. Like, you're not doing bad work. Like, would it like help you to like just kind of like take a check for like the next 2 months? So like, your last day can literally be the last day of the year. And I woke up January 1st, and it was just like,
Relief.
Yeah, I've only felt that twice. Once after graduating school, like after graduation and giving the commencement speech and all that kind of stuff. And then I woke up that next morning and was just like, I had like I think maybe like 3 weeks or like a month or something before I was starting my job, and just woke up and knew that like nobody was expecting anything from me.
Yeah.
Like not even myself. It was just like, just that limbo in between like college and starting a job. It was just like I woke up that morning like,
It's a good thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's interesting.
It is interesting. But I also think satisfaction leads you to understand that you planted a seed that you might not have acknowledged. You know what I mean? Like, if you are now in the space of dissatisfaction, that means that you're moving further away from something that's calling you this way. And for me, it shows itself to me in satisfaction or dissatisfaction. So the fact that the money is good, the business is good, prime time to franchise, prime time to expand, but my happiness was going lower and lower and lower, that's telling me that something else is already brewing in the world, that my soul, everything is ready to go there and expand and experience. I gotta, lean this way. Which, said in life, when people are making decisions or doing things that other people don't, it's like, well, I wouldn't. It's like, well, everybody is I feel is a natural magnet towards their highest potential. It's when you start pulling away from it that you start to feel all that pain. It's like you naturally cling to what you're passionate about, naturally. But society and opinions and lineage and family and all of these ties have you thinking about strategizing the best way to do something. It's like you naturally always gravitate towards your joy, but sometimes going towards your joy requires you to do some big boy decisions have to be made. You can't serve other people's happiness. You can't serve other people's expectation. You can't serve the expectations you had on yourself 2 months ago. Like, you can read a book and be different in 30 minutes. So why are you going to satisfy the version of you a year ago? Like just allowing for yourself to grow and bloom and then just go. Not to say, it's going to be easy. I don't know. It's not necessarily easy, but it's just not going to look how the movies and the fairy tales, like say success looks a certain kind of way. It's like I feel very successful with the least amount of money I've ever had in my life. Now, some days when I want to like go shopping, I'll be like, man. But those moments are like this much out of that much.
Right.
So, did that answer?
I think we can go ahead and cut it off there. Ladies and gentlemen, Amber Ellis.
Yeah.